Hajime no Ippo, the finale. It's been a very long ride, bro. I made my first video on this series in May of 2024, and now we've made it to the end. Ippo has fought and clawed his way up from being bullied in high school to learning how to box, getting his professional license, becoming the rookie king of Japan. He clawed his way up to the #1 spot in the featherweight class just to lose the most important fight of his life. Now he's back and better than ever. He's matched up against Sendo, somebody who he's fought and defeated before, but Sendo now isn't the same man who he already beat. This Sendo is the new champion of Japan, and he's got no intentions of handing that belt over. But before we get into that, we gotta pick up exactly where we left off. In the last episode, we get to see Sendo go up against Shigeta, and he completely annihilated him. After Sendo successfully defended his title for the second time, he got a chance to get up on the mic as he announced his next fight in November at Korakuen Hall over in Tokyo versus that man right there, Ippo Makunouchi. Ippo gets thrown up there to say something to Sendo, but of course, he's in enemy territory right now. So as the crowd sees him stumble and fumble over his words, they're all booing him, throwing trash. Y'all know how they get in. Ippo's trying to explain that his birthday is going to be soon after the match. So he wants to win the title so he can celebrate his birthday while still in high spirits. And surprisingly enough, they all respect it. Even though they're all voting for Sendo to win, he's their local hero out of Osaka. Ippo at least has enough respect as a worthy challenger. But as he sits down after his little speech, he hears an old lady to the side saying, "Ah, so you're Ippo. Takashi talks about you all the time." Turns out that this lady right here is Sendo's grandmother. And shockingly, she asked Ippo to quote unquote put the fear of God in that idiot, referring to Sendo, her own grandson. Ippo just thanks her for her support, being very kind and humble, and we fast forward over to the green room where Shigeta is laid out recovering. As he gets up, he asks what even happened. He doesn't remember anything, but judging from everybody's reaction, he realizes that he lost. The trainer tries to adjust the towel over his head. It's about to fall off, but as soon as he reaches in to touch it, Shigeta is scared. He flinches as Gramps just keenly watches on. Shigeta asks his trainer to set him up for another match. He's definitely going to go back and gun for the title, but outside the venue, Gramps is talking to Ippo, explaining that Shigeta is never going to touch the ring again. Shigeta's got what you call punch eye, extreme trauma from experiences in the ring. Gramps peeped that whenever dude reached over to try and fix the towel, he was scarred so much that he took it as an attempt for a punch and instinctively tried to defend himself. He's scarred so much that he'll never step into the ring ever again. And it was Sendo who imprinted that fear into his mind. Just realizing how much Sendo has changed, Ippo feels afraid. He gets the jitters thinking about getting into the ring with them, but Gramps reassures him, saying that he's changed drastically as well. Sendo is different than before, but Ippo has also gone through his own fair share of changes. He's been through plenty of his own fierce fights and has gone through that training camp, which were all to prepare him for this exact moment. Fast forward to the next day back home, and Ippo's just sitting in his room thinking about Sendo and how different he is now. Of course, Gramps just told him that he's improved himself as well, but he can't help but feel nervous. Suddenly, his mom walks in, telling him that his girl is on the phone. At first, Ippo doesn't realize who she's talking about, but let's be for real, bruh. Who else could she be talking about? His mom says that Kumi's there, and Ippo darts to the phone. She ended up calling, saying that she needs some advice for something, and Ippo saying that he's not too sure if he could be of good help, but he'll at least try his best. They're both nervous around each other. They're both the shy archetype. Y'all can see how this dynamic is, but before Kumi's even able to get the words out, she's interrupted by one of her co-workers, saying that she's got to get back to work instantly. But right before she hangs up, Ippo asks her to hang out sometime, and she agrees. Kumi goes about her work, and Ippo starts looking through places that he could go on a date with. We go ahead and fast forward to their little date, and they end up at the zoo. Kumi pulls up on him, as her and Ippo have a good time looking at all the animals. They're having small talk as Ippo comes across this tiger, instantly thinking of Sendo, the tiger of Naniwa. As he locks eyes with the tiger, Ippo instantly shifts gears into only thinking about this title match, repeating to himself that he'll never lose no matter what. It's not an option, he can't accept it. But out of nowhere, Kumi warns him not to stand right there but he gets sprayed with urine from this tiger, bro. I've never seen nothing like this before. He done got this all over his fresh suit while on date with Olga. Hey, bro. That's tough. He ends up having to change out of his suit into this little t-shirt that they got, but Kumi doesn't really mind. She says the shirt looks good on him. They get back to talking some more, and she assumes that Ippo had gotten lost in thought about boxing. She knows that it'd be impossible to ask a professional boxer with the fight coming up not to worry about boxing, so she understands. Though she does worry a little bit that he'll always be like this. But once again, she knows that it's part of the territory, so she just wanted to tease him a little bit about it. It's no big deal. But Ippo caught on to what she said, quote unquote, always, making the assumption that, they would always be together in that type of way. But at the moment, they're not officially anything, so he never expected her to say something like this. He brings it up, she gets flustered, and he gets flustered because she's flustered. But before they could say anything, they get interrupted once again by another one of these animals. As they finally get some quiet time, Ippo ends up asking Kumi what she had wanted to talk about on the phone. Kumi asks if Ippo ended up seeing a sign that was found outside of the gym the other day. Now, if you don't remember, back when Ippo had given Imura his very first signature, after Kumi had asked to be his first signature, she had taken the poster board and the marker, leaving a sign with "idiot" written over it, leaving it outside for him at the gym. Ippo didn't end up realizing who had left a message or who it was even for, saying that everybody at the gym was arguing about it and Aoki ended up having to take the blame, or at least who the blame was forced onto. Kumi just apologizes, admitting that it was her who left that note. Ippo is just shocked, wondering why she's got beef with Aoki, but she obviously don't got no beef with Aoki. She ends up explaining what happened, and she was just frustrated over his autograph and her wanting to be the first, but he gave it to Imura instead. It was just a whole jumble of emotions. Ippo ends up taking the blame himself, saying that it was irresponsible of him for not thinking about what she said, and apologizes as Kumi looks relieved. And wanting to make it up even more to her, Ippo says that she's going to be the first one to get his autograph. His first autograph once he's the featherweight champion of Japan, swearing to her that he's going to win. Over on the other side of Japan, Imura pulls up to this little candy shop ran by Sendo's grandmother. Imura had a meeting scheduled with Sendo, but apparently he forgot about it and just went on his road work anyways. So his grandma just asked Imura to please just wait a little bit longer until he comes back. Imura asks if she's the champion's grandmother, but Miss Sendo doesn't want her to call him that. The more that people call him that, and the more that he hears this type of stuff, she says the more his head will swell up, and eventually his ego is gonna explode. Since Sendo's not here and Imura has nothing else to do, she asks Miss Sendo some questions instead. We get a little bit of backstory on Sendo. He lost his parents while he was still young, so his grandmother had raised him since he was still a child. But the way she sees him now, she sees him as a big old nuisance. Countering that, Imura compliments Sendo on his strength and his courage and his technical ability. He's able to use all of that to become the champion of Japan. Imura just continues to ask about Sendo and his backstory, along as how he was raised. Sendo grew up without a mother. She had died during childbirth, which led him to be raised alone by his father, who was a firefighter. But while saving a kid who is the same age as Sendo, his father had passed away as well. Miss Sendo recalls that at the funeral, Sendo refused to shed a tear. While of course he was going through this traumatic event, he also was incredibly proud of what his father had done. His grandmother had encouraged him to grow up and become just like his father. And ever since then, Sendo had seemingly been on a good path, until one day he had came home all beaten up and bruised. Turns out 2 of his friends were getting bullied, and when he tried to stand up to him, the older and bigger bullies ganged up on Sendo, and he wasn't strong enough to protect anybody. Moving forward, he did his best to become stronger. He began to take pride in his strength and doing what he could to defend him and his friends. But growing up with this mentality, things eventually just went out of control. Miss Sendo says that before she even knew it, Sendo had become a full-fledged gang leader with all types of followers. She just wonders where she went wrong, how she managed to raise such a child. Imura tries to reason with her, saying that Sendo doesn't pick on the weak though. He was doing it for a good cause. If anything, he was a delinquent of justice. But Miss Sendo retaliates, saying that there is no justice in violence, regardless of however you twist it. After Miss Sendo and Imura talk a little bit about Sendo's backstory, he pulls up with the kids from his neighborhood all gathering around him. Miss Sendo immediately gets on him for missing his interview with Imura, as the kids pick up that this is an interviewer from Japan. They're instantly calling her a spy. She's here to give info to Ippo, all types of stuff. But they're saying Sendo isn't how he was back then. He's real different now. Imura is curious as to what they're talking about, so she plays along with it, asking what, as he lifts up Sendo's pant leg, showing these weights around his ankle. The kids challenge Imura to try them on, and Sendo says he doesn't care, so she wraps them around her ankles, but she can't even move her feet at all. Sendo explains that he's been wearing these for a while, but didn't see the effects of it until his most recent match versus Sugita. His feet felt light and he felt like his legs were stronger, but he hadn't fully utilized it until that 3rd round, when he realized how to use his legs and power throughout his entire body to add more strength to his attack. Up until now, he was merely punching with his upper body, mainly his arms, but since he's using his full body, he's gained that same punch that Ippo has. That punch that leaves an imprint as soon as it connects. He offers to take Imura over to his gym, as she gets excited to find out what Sendo's counter is to the Dempsey roll. But as soon as she makes it over there and starts talking to Sendo's coach, she finds out that they don't have a counter for the Dempsey roll. He knows that honestly, the Dempsey roll is dangerous. If Sendo were to get hit by it, then there's nothing you could do in order to lessen the damage. So instead of trying to figure out a direct counter to it, this is what they came up with. Sendo hops into the ring with the first fighter of his sparring session, who, by the way, are all going to be above the featherweight class. They're going to weigh more than Sendo. But as the spar begins, Sendo easily outpunches him and drives him into a corner without dude even having a chance to really even get anything going. Now it's time for his quote-unquote counter, or at least this new method of fighting, this new style that he's going to use against Ippo. He widens his stance, lowering his entire body as he pivots his foot, beginning to shift his weight back and forth, punching in between each pivot as he knocks his first opponent down to the ground. Imura, who is a big fan of boxing, realizes that she's never seen anybody with this style before. Sendo's trainer is giving credit to Ippo and to Vogue, saying that without fighting them and realizing that weight shift that they do, he never would have been able to come up with something like this. Before, they were solely relying on the incredible arm strength that Sendo has, but now they're focusing more on his lower body for him to be the most effective. What we're seeing in the ring right now is the results of that training. Coach says that they're not going to hide anything. They're not going to use any type of secret technique or strategy in order to counter Ippo. They're going to fight head to head. It's safe to say they're plenty confident for this fight moving forward. After the sparring session, Imura is walking with Sendo, having a little bit more back and forth about this upcoming fight, as she realizes that Sendo seems to be more excited than anybody about the fight. She wonders if he feels any other types of emotions, and Sendo admits that he's scared. He knows that Ippo's incredibly strong and dangerous, as he says that his greatest fear is his fear of losing. But outside of the fight itself, he recalls their first match, saying that a fight like that is once in a lifetime. He's never experienced anything like that beforehand and hasn't experienced anything like that to this day. He knows that Ippo is the only one who he could fight as an equal. He's excited that he gets to pick up right where they left off. Sendo tells Imura that once she gets back to Tokyo, she needs to tell Ippo this one thing. But he gets interrupted by the sight of a fire truck passing by. instantly running to go and see if he can help. We get to see that the dynamic we saw in his backstory still applies. He still has that protective nature, wanting to help people and use his strength and his courage for good use. Imura calls out to him, wondering what he wanted her to tell Ippo, as he stops real quick, singing that in their next match, the belt isn't going to be what's at stake. What they're fighting for is each other's pride. We then get a POV over with Ippo, seeing himself and Sendo on the cover of this boxing magazine. He's reading Sendo's article as he pulls up to the gym and is stopped by Imura, who's asking him if she enjoyed his article. This is what she had wrote from us seeing her over at Sendo's grandma's place and over at the gym, and Ippo didn't even know that she was the one who had wrote it. She gives her credit, saying that it perfectly portrayed Sendo's intensity. In the article, it explains Sendo's wider stance that he'll be using to counter Ippo's Dempsey role, as Ippo realizes that the Dempsey role is becoming less and less of an option. He knows that he's gonna have to go out gunning right at the start of the match. Ippo's explaining to her that it doesn't feel the same as his last title match. When he fought against Date, it definitely felt like it was this grand, big spectacle, but now he says that his upcoming fight versus Sendo doesn't even feel like the belt is actually what's at stake. And Imura realizes that Ippo just said the same thing that Sendo had said just earlier. The next thing we see is the weigh-in, the day before the match. Ippo walks in all nervous, but Sendo pops up real confidently, asking why he's moving so scary. He's super casual, super relaxed, as he takes off his shirt and everybody realizes how much he's worked on his body and his muscles. But when Ippo takes off his shirt, everybody else is just as surprised, seeing his back is noticeably bigger and more defined than ever before. And if you remember, this is exactly what Nico had Ippo work on ever since the training camp. They know that the back is the source of power and Ippo's back is A1. They both end up passing the weigh-in as Gramps starts to walk Ippo home. He's in the middle of telling them a handful of things about staying prepared for the match, all that, but as he's going up the stairs, they run into Sendo. Sendo asks if he could borrow Ippo for just a minute, and normally he wouldn't do this, but considering their special little situation, Gramps agrees. Sendo takes Ippo to look over the ring as they talk a little bit about Korku and Hall and their upcoming fight. Ippo points out how relaxed Sendo is, but he admits he's been trying his best to keep his composure. Ever since Ippo showed up, he's felt nothing but pure excitement, ready to meet him in the ring again. Seeing Sendo talk here like this about going head to head in the ring, duking it out with each other to find out who's truly strong, Ippo realizes that Sendo hasn't changed one bit. Sendo offers out his hand, saying that he doesn't plan on losing. And of course, Ippo does the same. Later that night, we see Ippo in his room just sitting there as his mom is checking up on him. She knows that he might have trouble sleeping since it's the night before his big fight, but at the very least, he's got to get in bed. His body needs some rest. He admits that he's scared of fighting Sendo since he knows how strong he's gonna be and how tough the fight is. But his mom says, once again, he needs his rest. At the very least, he should climb under the blankets and close his eyes, but Ippo knows that's not gonna work. He couldn't possibly sleep in this state. The sounds of his own heartbeat are just way too loud. But these sounds aren't purely out of the fear of fighting Sendo. Ippo says he's never been this excited for a match before. And sitting here struggling to get his rest, this is where Ippo needs the sponsor of today's video, Manta Sleep. They make the world's most premium sleep masks. Let's be real, y'all. Better sleep means a better life, which is why Manta has made it a part of their mission to improve your life through sleep. Their ProNap movement is based on the reality that you're not at your best when you're not well rested. Using Manta sleep masks, you can block out all light at any time of day. Look, y'all, I got my studio lights on. It's the middle of the day. It's bright in this room. I cannot see a thing. It is pure black. I can't even see a trace of light through the mask. All of the masks are fully adjustable, made to have a premium feel regardless of how you sleep. They offer a wide variety of products. You got the original Manta Sleep mask, the weighted mask, cool mask, silk mask, pro mask, and what I got, the sound mask with ultra thin Bluetooth speakers inside, so you can listen to your favorite music, audiobooks, or YouTube videos while you go to sleep. My sleep is important and yours is too. Check out Man to Sleep in the description and use code CENSAY for 10% off. Let's get back to the video. We go ahead and fast forward to the day of the fight, and King Doodle Shirt is here trying to get the Japan crowd hyped to root on Ippo. They're at home territory this time, so he's got to make sure everybody is in tune while rooting them on. After all, he is Ippo's #1 fan, and seeing another group walk up, he's trying to get them in on the hype train as well. But this is Sendo's fan club. A huge group of them came all the way over from Osaka in order to cheer Sendo on, and King Doodle Shirt can't believe it. We also get to see Kumi and Mashiba. Mashiba is refusing to root for Ippo, but Kumi says she'll do enough for the both of them. Finally pulling up, we see Neko once again with this big bag wrapped around his back as he pulled up ready to cheer him on as well. Finally, it's time for the big event. It's time for Lollapalooza. Ippo's second chance at going for the title. Sendo's chance at getting revenge on Ippo. Like they said, this may be the title match, but the belt is not what's on the line. In Sendo's prep room, he's sitting there talking to his coach. Coach calls out that a lot of people from his hometown came to root him on, as Sendo gets flashbacks to his last fight. He doesn't remember super clearly, but he knows that they must have been rooting for him in this exact same way, but he let him down. He's trembling with excitement that now's his opportunity to get his revenge. Over at Ippo's room, he's doing some mid punching with Gramps, but he's going at full capacity. Gramps is trying to get him to calm down, but Ippo can't stay calm. He's feeling just as much tension and nervousness for this fight as Sendo is. He couldn't take it down a notch if he tried. He's continuing to go crazy as Neko walks in and finishing his last warm-up punch with Gramps. He could tell that Ippo doesn't need any type of encouragement. He just needs to go out there and do his thing. Everybody begins to make their leave as Unk tells Ippo one thing before he goes. He knows that Ippo started boxing after he met Unk and he wanted to be just like him. Ippo wanted to be strong, as Unk says if he goes out there and wins this fight, he'll acknowledge that Ippo is another step closer. As everybody leaves the room, we see views of different people related to Ippo. We see King Doodle Shirt in the fan club up in the crowd. We see Miyata standing off to the side somewhere ready for the match to begin, and we also see his mom over at home, knowing that it's about time for this fight to begin. Gramps gives him one final prep talk before Ippo heads out there, telling him that he fought Sendo for the All Japan title, but this rematch is completely different. Sendo is going out there as the strongest man in Japan, and Ippo is the challenger. He has to go out there with that exact mentality. The champion is out there waiting for him. Finally, in the ring, the announcer calls out that the Japan featherweight title match is ready to begin. Over in the blue corner, we see the challenger, Ippo Makunochi. 12 matches, 11-1 with 11 knockouts. Every victory of his ended with an explosive KO. While over in the red corner, the champion, Takashi Sendo. 16 fights, 15 wins, and 14 knockouts. His only one loss being at the hands of the current challenger, Ippo. He's here ready for revenge, ready to defend his title in enemy territory. The crowd is going crazy. There's just unmatched levels of excitement, ready for this fight to begin. Up in the stands, we hear Kumi having a conversation with her brother, wondering if Ippo was gonna win. Mashiba provides his own insight as a boxer, saying that by the way it looks, Ippo is more focused right now. Sendo may look scary, but he's a bit overzealous. He's too ready for the fight. It seems as if the loss 2 years ago has had some sort of snowball effect. He was of course mad then, but he's only had more and more time to build up this frustration, and hearing this come from Mashiba, we know he's in the exact same spot. He also lost to Ippo 2 years ago and can't live with the fact that he hasn't got his revenge. He says if it were him in that ring right now, he wouldn't wait for the bell. He just starts swinging. Both fighters end up going back to their corners as we hear the mindset of both of them extremely ready and excited for this match as the bell finally rings. They both immediately look at each other, but by the time that Sendo even saw Ippo, he's dashed in ready to catch Sendo by surprise. He instantly starts off the match with his Dempsey roll. He's putting immediate pressure on Sendo before he even got a chance to warm up and get into his groove, as Sendo tries to hit, but he misses. Ippo starts wailing punches on him, but Sendo's guard is staying firm. The punches just continue on and on as Ippo lands one in the face, immediately knocking Sendo down. Sendo's coach can't believe it. Ippo got them. He never expected that he would use the Dempsey roll off the rip, as this was Gramps' plan the entire time. He wanted to get to Sendo while his body was still tense, before he could ease into the match and shake all of the nerves, and obviously it was a huge success. Sendo is just lying there on the ground as his fan club is stunned. They can't believe it neither. The announcers are wondering if this is already it for Sendo. If after finally experiencing the Dempsey roll firsthand, he can't handle it, while in Sendo's head, he's just shocked that this is what it actually feels like. Not only is it fast, but it uses the entire weight of the body in order to deliver its blows. Once you start it, you can't stop it. Sendo's just lying there as his coach slams the floor, asking him what he did for this past 2 years. Is he already gonna let all of this go to waste? And instantly hearing that, Sendo gets right up. He's on his feet, telling the ref that if he ever tries to stop this match, he's gonna kill him with his own 2 hands. So the ref just lets it continue. Ippo rushes right back in and goes for his Dempsey roll once again, and instead of getting his distance, Sendo is going to rely on scrapping up close. He throws another punch at Ippo, but misses once again. Ippo turns it into a left, comboing it with another right, as Sendo just barely manages to stay up, holding on to the ropes. Ippo just hesitates for a slight moment, and Sendo uses that opportunity to land a right straight, pushing Ippo back through his guard. But even though his guard was firm, it wasn't firm enough to deflect the full power of Sendo's straight, as we see blood squeeze through Ippo's gloves. Ippo managed to block the punch, but it still got through and crushed his nose. That punch, Sendo's punch from 2 years ago, is even stronger. Sendo's trying to rush in, but he can't. He already took enough hits from the Dempsey roll that his legs aren't working with him. Noticing this, Ippo rushes in to take advantage of it, using his Dempsey roll once again. But just in the nick of time, Sendo is able to dash in, squashing the Dempsey roll before it could even get started. This leads Sendo to go into his own barrage of punches, as Gramps and Yagi can't help but be impressed with Sendo's new ability to take punches this well. Him training on his legs had an adverse effect of not only increasing his offensive power, but increasing his flexibility on defense. Sendo's just punching on Ippo's block, upset with the fact that he let himself get down so embarrassingly so early into the fight. He knows that he lets his guard down and he won't let it happen ever again. In Ippo's mind, he could tell that he's getting pushed back into the corner and realizes this is exactly what happened to Shigeta, so he's not going to let it get to that point. But Sendo throws a smash, destroying Ippo's guard as he follows up with the right, but then Ippo intercepts it with a left of his own. Outside the ring, neither coach wants either of their fighters to budge. Gramps knows that Ippo has the advantage in this close range. This is where he thrives. If Sendo wants to beat him, he's got to beat him here. And Sendo's coach knows that if Sendo stays this close up, the Dempsey roll is going to be rendered useless. They both lower their stance, preparing to exchange blows as they stare into each other's eyes. Sendo starts with the left, but Ippo dodges it, responding with the right. They begin this back and forth of blows and counters, into more blows, into more counters, even clashing heads inside the ring as they continue with more and more punches. They're evenly matched as the crowd realizes that their main focus isn't to try and knock each other down right now. They're having a competition to answer one question: who has the better punches? Sendo lands a right as Ippo steps back a little bit, but is able to respond with his own punch, making Sendo's legs shift as well. Neither of them give up for even a second as they trade punches simultaneously, going back into their back and forth exchange all the way up until the end of the round as the bell finally rings. They both respectively go back into their corner. Ippo is up in terms of score 10-8. But as Neko is talking to King Doodle Shirt in the crowd, he's explaining that the champion is not to be taken lightly. Ippo may have won this first round, but this is all coming off a surprise knockdown early in the match. He has a slight advantage, but the fact that Sendo was able to recover into what the rest of the round ended up as, nothing is guaranteed. Sendo's just in his corner saying that this is exactly how he wanted it to be. He's really recognizing how amazing Ippo is, knowing that it's just going to be that much more satisfying once he wins. Over in Ippo's corner, Gramps is telling him to try and avoid exchanges like that. Ippo didn't even realize that he took so many hits. He was going in and out of consciousness during that, as he realized that Sendo has improved so much since their last fight. He already knew this from watching his fights across the years, but feeling it inside of the ring is a completely different story. Even though Gramps told him to try and stay away from these interactions, to try and score points from a distance, he knows that Sendo is just going to rush him down the instant that he tries to back off, and that's just going to put him in an even worse position. He's going to have to duke it out with Sendo, whether Gramps likes it or not. Going into the second round, it's more of the same. Ippo and Sendo duking it out inside of the ring as opposing fan bases are clashing in the crowd. Everybody begins to stomp their feet, causing this rumbling sound to echo throughout Korakuen Hall. Apparently, this is a legendary tradition that happens during super hype moments, as Aoki and Kimura are just happy to be a part of history right now. But tells them to lock in. Right now, they're going at it evenly inside the ring, but the balance is going to tip towards one or the other very soon. Aoki and Kimura can't tell who it's tipping towards, as Unk reveals that Ippo is at the disadvantage. At this rate, from Unk's expertise and judgment, he's going to lose. And just as Unk called it, Ippo begins to lose space inside of the ring. He's getting pushed back gradually as Yaki's confused why this is starting to happen. They were just evenly matched up until a minute ago, but Gramps calls out that their gap is now being shown. Inside the ring, Ippo is looking at Sendo, noticing how intimidating he looks. He looks 10 times bigger and more scary than he did just a second ago. Seeing Ippo from the stands, Unk can tell that he's just now realized it. The difference between Ippo and Sendo that's becoming increasingly apparent is their build. They did both pass the weigh-in yesterday, but Gramps says it's common for boxers to store up and conserve as much energy as possible in between the time of the weigh-in and the fight. So Sendo, who naturally has a bulkier frame, is probably exceeding the featherweight limit right now. He's probably put on some more weight, allowing him to have more stamina. Ippo decides to not let himself fall into the pressure that Sendo is exuding right now, so he decides to go in, but Sendo beats him to it, landing a left and beginning his own barrage, as all Ippo can do is ball up and hold his guard. He lands another clean body blow, managing to follow up with a punch to Ippo's block that traps him in the corner. With a minute left in round 2, this is looking like Sendo's prime opportunity to squash Ippo for good. So Sendo lowers his stance, moving into that style of punching that he showed in that sparring session earlier, as he begins punching with his full body weight, as these punches are just getting significantly more powerful than before. While on the other side, Ippo is just trying his best to endure. Gramps wants him to get out of there. At this point, he's got 30 seconds left in the round and doesn't want him taking on all this damage. But Ippo's hands are full just trying to keep up this block right now. Ippo just slowly realizes that he can't absorb all of these. At this rate, if he continues taking punches, he's going to be crushed. He's continuing to take these punches on and on, not being able to believe that just 5 minutes ago, he actually was excited to fight this guy. Now that he's in the ring, is a completely different story. Being completely dominated in the ring, Ippo just says he's scared. He takes another punch from Sendo, making him start to fall, but he manages to hold himself up against the ropes. But this puts Sendo in the position to land an even better punch, his finishing blow. He sends it out, but round 2 ends as the ref intervenes. They head back to their corners and Sendo's coach is reflecting on the rounds. Sendo wasn't continuously punching at Ippo's gloves in order to try and get through to Ippo, but he was trying to imprint fear in the same way that he did to Shigeta. Coach says that imprinting fear into the opponent is Sendo's style of boxing, and clearly it's worked like a charm. Over in Ippo's corner, after barely even managing to make it to his seat, Gramps is trying to get his attention, but Ippo's not hearing it. He's just thinking about the onslaught that he just endured. His arms are still numb. He's surprised that he even made it out of that alive. He's starting to think what would happen if he didn't have his guard up. If Sendo managed to catch him and get him into a barrage of punches as he was completely defenseless, what could have possibly happened? But Gramps snaps him out of it. Gramps is telling him that he's got to stay on the offense. If he stays on defense, then Sendo is going to be able to get into his rhythm by throwing more punches and he's going to be unstoppable. Ippo has no choice but to attack, and Ippo, not even making eye contact, just says okay. Over in Sendo's corner, his coach tells him that they're starting to lose their cool over there, so he wants Sendo to continue applying pressure in the same way that he did last round. Sendo agrees as he looks up to the clock, realizing that it's the third round, the same round in which Ippo defeated him last time. Sendo says that now it's time for him to repay the favor. The bell rings and Ippo rushes in, listening to Gramps' advice that he just has to lash out in order to prevent Sendo from getting into his rhythm. But as he dashes across the ring, Sendo is just standing there staring him down. Ippo at this point is frozen like a deer in headlights. Sendo's fear has completely been implanted into Ippo's mind. Gramps yells out to Ippo, wondering what the hell he's even doing, as he's able to snap back into it, throwing a punch, but Aoki and Kimura in the crowd can tell that he's out of control. He's throwing damn near roundhouse punches at this point, and Sendo was easily dodging them all as he responds with the smash. And the only thing that Ippo could think of, if he took that punch straight on, his head would go flying off. Sendo's made it to the point where Ippo can only think about what's gonna happen if he takes the punch at full power, and it's preventing Ippo from thinking logically. Sendo is following up with another punch, and Ippo knows that he has to lash out and intercept it, but his fear is stopping him from doing so. He just puts up his guard as Gramps is pissed, and even inside the ring, Sendo is disappointed. He doesn't know what Ippo's doing, but this isn't his style. It's not him. He's embarrassed that all Ippo was doing is balling up and going into a guard, as Sendo goes in for another attack and using his killer intent to throw a feint is able to knock Ippo off guard. Ippo is thinking a left is coming when it's really a right, and thinks a right is coming when it's really a left. He's completely lost control of his offense and now his defense, thanks to that fear that Sendo had implanted. Now, Ippo's just overthinking each and every one of Sendo's moves and ends up backing himself into a corner, as up in the crowd, Neko is disappointed. He's wondering why Ippo's acting so timid now. He needs to use everything that he's learned back in training camp, but in the ring, Sendo is not letting him do so. He starts wailing punches onto Ippo just like the last round. Gramps is just pissed that at this point the fight has deteriorated into a sorry excuse for a boxing match. He's just praying that Ippo perseveres through the rest of the round so he can knock some sense into him to at least try and give him a chance to win. Yagi, on the other hand, also wants Ippo to make it back as well, but he knows that even if the Dempsey roll has been countered, he still has one move that he hasn't tried yet. One move that he could use to overcome his fear of Sendo. Ippo's in the corner getting demolished as he comes to the conclusion that he's not good enough to win this fight. He can't stay on his feet anymore. He can't believe that he actually looked forward to fighting Sendo. He's okay with the fact that he lost, knowing that he did everything that he could. He used all of his tools, but he remembers that he has one more thing that he hasn't tried. Ippo manages to bring his body back up as Sendo goes in for his final attack to put this pitiful fight to an end. He's ashamed that in the past 2 years, this is what Ippo's turned into, this useless shell of a boxer. But as Sendo makes eye contact, getting a glimpse of Ippo's eyes, he sees this newfound determination as Ippo sends a feint mixed with some killer intent of his own. Everybody's wondering what happened. Why did Sendo just back off like this when he clearly had the opportunity to win? But Sendo in the ring doesn't know what happened either. He could have swore that he saw a punch coming. The bell for the end of the third round rings, and Sendo's coach completely expected that round to be the end of the fight. But over in Ippo's corner, Gramps is just telling him to take deep breaths and just focus on recovery. But all Ippo can hear is his own thoughts telling him that he can't lose. He knows that he has to use everything that he's learned up until this point, but his brain just isn't working right now. He can't even remember what he's learned to even try it in the ring. He's in so much pain and is just confused overall. But from the stands, we hear Hachi, Neko's dog, loudly bark, echoing throughout the stadium. Suddenly, hearing Hachi, Ippo begins to remember training camp. He remembers his talks with Gramps, with Neko, with Unk, and of course, all of his training. His expression changes and Gramps realizes he's still got some life left in those eyes. He doesn't have to slap sense into Ippo anymore. He can rely on his most powerful weapon. The only weapon that, at this point, he can use to fight his fear of Sendo, his courage. As they kick the seconds out, Gramps tells Ippo that the fight is just now beginning. As the bell for the fourth round rings, neither fighter moves an inch. Kumi's worried about what's going on as Mashiba explains that Sendo's animal instincts are causing him to hesitate. Something must have happened at the end of last round, which is still lingering in his mind. Now we can see that Sendo imprinted that fear into Ippo, but Ippo has also managed to do the same. From the stands, Mashiba can see Ippo's eyes, remembering that they're the exact same as the Eastern Japan tournament. Mashiba's getting pissed, reliving that moment, wishing that he could trade places with Sendo and fight Ippo his damn self. In the ring, Sendo's trying to figure out what Ippo was planning on doing before the end of round 3. He knows that he was trying to send out something, but he's not in the right mind state to work through his brain and figure that out. He just has to go in and fight. But right before he does, Ippo rushes in to meet him. They go back to exchanging punches as Sendo tries to cut Ippo's momentum off with the smash, but Ippo is able to deflect it this time. Sendo's upset because he realized that he used the smash too many times. Now Ippo's able to read it and tell when it's coming. But in Ippo's head, he's seeing that he can't let himself get hit by that or else it's all game over. It's pretty much the same thing that he said before, but now it's in a completely different tone. We could tell that the fear that Sendo had implanted in his mind is starting to wear off, or at the very least, its impact on Ippo's decision making is different. Sendo tries throwing his feints again, but Ippo starts to weave back and forth, knowing that it's harder to effectively get these feints off while he's weaving so quickly. So Sendo rushes in order to cut off the weaving before he can link it into the Dempsey roll, but Gramps tells Ippo that Sendo being this close means his smash is cut off as well. So there's nothing for him to worry about. They get into this slugfest reminiscent of round 1 as they're just punching at each other back and forth. Slowly, Ippo begins to gain more and more leeway, but at the same time, Sendo refuses to back off. Gramps knows that this is as much as a mental battle as it is a physical one. He knows that Ippo can't afford to lose the mental battle or else he has no chance of winning this fight. Ippo manages to land a right, pushing Sendo back as Ippo sees this opportunity to push forward. And in Sendo's mind, he's glad that the man he was excited to fight is back. This is the true Ippo that he's been waiting for. As Ippo continues to push forward, he realizes at the last second that Sendo is in southpaw, beginning to throw that same low altitude smash that he used versus Fold. Ippo managed to block it, but was still sent flying back. This is just the type of power that Sendo has. Even if Ippo is able to predict and block his attacks, the sheer power is still enough to force him into a situation where he's still in a disadvantage. Sendo pushes forward, eventually backing Ippo into a corner, and Gramps realizes that even with all the courage in the world, even with all of his techniques and smart maneuvers, Ippo just might not have enough to beat Sendo. His raw power might exceed everything that Ippo has to offer. Sendo lowers his center of gravity as he realizes that he's got him. He's finally beat Ippo. He's finally won. This was the moment that he's been waiting for, and as we see him land this punch, Ippo looks dazed, but Sendo is the one to hit the mat. Everybody is in shock as Ippo was able to land a counter. Bent over, using the corner of the ring for support, he was able to throw the gazelle punch and knock Sendo down. Sendo knew he wasn't imagining it. This was the punch that Ippo had planned to throw at the end of round 3, a gazelle counter punch. The ref is counting up as Sendo tries to stand, but he falls right back over. He's struggling with all his might to get back up, and he may look shaky, but Ippo has no doubt in his mind that Sendo's gonna get back up. He gets back into his own fighting position, confirming that it's not gonna be the gazelle punch that takes Sendo down. It's gonna have to be a barrage to destroy Sendo's spirit. He's gonna have to take him out with a Dempsey roll. Sendo does eventually get back into a fighting position, but everybody can tell his legs are unsteady. He's taking serious damage. But in Sendo's mind, as long as he can still lift his arms up, as long as he can still move, he can still fight. He's never gonna give up. They both rush in, and Sendo, with barely any power left in his legs, attempts to throw a punch, but Ippo easily dodges it, comboing it into his Dempsey roll. But his legs give out as well, as they just awkwardly stand there in a stalemate. They realize that they gotta rely on straight arms, but the bell for the 4th round rings as Ippo's most open shot at defeating Sendo just washed away. In the crowd, Aoki and Kimura are hyped that Ippo has the opportunity to knock Sendo down since he's out of energy, but brings him back down to reality, calling out that the only reason that Ippo didn't finish him was because he's out of energy as well. While he does have the means to defeat Sendo, those same odds are stacked against him. Calls out that Ippo has taken away more than what he's capable of in terms of accumulated damage. The second that he falls to the ground, there's no chance he'll be able to get back up. In Sendo's corner, he's telling his trainer that of all the opponents that he's gone up against in the ring, Ippo is the strongest. But his trainer is reassuring him, telling Sendo that he's the strongest, he's the champion. But Sendo still doesn't believe that the belt is any bit real. He says once he's able to defeat Ippo, he can prove to himself and everybody else that he's #1 in Japan, and that title of the strongest will truly be his. He tells his coach that he held up his end of the promise, and now it's Sendo's turn. We hurry into the 5th round as Ippo's able to land the first hit, but Sendo quickly retaliates as they swap positioning and Sendo forces Ippo into the corner. As Sendo is wailing punches on Ippo, we get this monologue from his trainer, realizing that Sendo is the exact same as when they first met. We get a scene of Sendo's trainer hearing from one of his co-workers that the boxers are in a street fight. He's mad because he told all of his trainees never to fight in street fights. Their fists aren't for that. But the guy that they were going up against was supposedly extremely cocky and provocative. As he turns the corner, all of his trainee fighters were defeated, and the man who did it was Sendo. Sendo's just saying that he thought these guys would be tough since they claimed to be boxers, but they didn't stand a chance. He's sick of fighting little small fry like these. He wants to find out how strong he truly is. Coach corrects him, saying that these guys are boxers, but they're more like fish in a barrel. They're just trainees who are only getting started. He should only talk so tough after fighting a real boxer. Immediately after realizing that this man is a boxer, Sendo rushes him. Coach is impressed with Sendo's speed as he blocks his attack, putting his fist up to Sendo's chin. And with just that, Sendo got the message. Coach tells him that he's not a boxer anymore. He's retired. In the actual ring, he'd look pathetic in comparison. There's so much more to the boxing world that Sendo couldn't possibly understand. Back at his gym, he's telling the owner of the gym about Sendo and how impressive he was. He's got all types of talent and hunger to become a real boxer. He's getting excited, saying that he personally was only able to reach the #1 rank in Japan, but he was never able to beat the champ. And this kid might just be able to surpass him. All of a sudden, Sendo bursts through the door, disappointed that the man who beat him was never even able to become the champion. He goes straight into the ring, saying that this champion guy must be real strong. Sendo just says he wants to meet the strongest men in Japan, and both the coach and the head of the gym can't help but be shocked at Sendo's tenacity. Sendo asks him to let him meet the strongest man in Japan, and he'll prove to him that he's #1. Back to real time, and that's exactly the position that Sendo's in. He's already admitted that Ippo is the strongest of all of his opponents, so coach was able to uphold his end of the bargain. Now it's Sendo's turn to win. In the ring, Ippo lands this uppercut, and we see Sendo's face covered in blood. But as Ippo rushes in for the finishing blow, Sendo lands a counter. Up in the stands, Unk is begging for Ippo to attack intensely or else he'll lose all types of momentum. He's already taken way more damage than he can handle, so if he starts to take even more hits, then his hopes of winning go down the drain. Ippo in the ring is trying his best to continue punching, but Sendo was just landing consecutive hits over and over as finally Ippo falls to the ground. Ippo has officially taken his first knockdown of the fight, but the coach knows it's deeper than that. This is Ippo's first time being knocked down in all of his matches versus Sendo. Just the act of him touching the mat helps break down this indestructible image that lives in Sendo's mind. But as the ref continues to count up, despite what Unk has said, Ippo manages to get up into a fighting position. Unk already knows that it's a miracle that Ippo's managed to stand after being knocked down like this, but he can tell that all of that accumulated damage from the first round up until now is starting to show all at once. As the ref calls for the fight to continue, Sendo rushes in, landing another right, knocking Ippo's mouthpiece out as blood flies through the air, and Ippo suffers his second knockdown back to back. He falls face first flat onto the mat as Sendo just walks back to his corner, not even turning around to look down at Ippo. He wonders if everybody in the crowd saw that punch as he slowly lifts his fist, saying that these are the most powerful fists in Japan. Sendo is just looking down on Ippo, laid there out on the ground, claiming that this title belongs to him, the champion of Japan. Yagi realizes how dangerous the situation is, and looking over at Gramps, he's grasping onto the towel. He knows how bad it's getting. Yagi knows that the right thing to do is to throw in the towel, but for some reason, Gramps isn't throwing it in. Over with Ippo, he's hazily thinking about this punch that he just took, saying that no punch has ever made him feel this good. He's been putting up through all of this pain since the very first round, and once he fell to the mat, it seemed so easy to just close his eyes and go to sleep. He tried his best, but Sendo is just too good. He failed to take the title. He's telling himself not to think about it too hard. He really did everything in his power, reiterating the fact that he failed to win the title again. He's just repeating this over and over, beginning to close his eyes, saying that he might as well put himself out of his misery. But then he thinks about the last title match versus Date, knowing that he never wants to go through something like that ever again. Regardless of how tempting it may be right now or how much pain he'll have to put up with, he'll never resign himself to that reality as long as he has anything to do about it. He's using the pain of his last experience to motivate him into standing back up as he tells the ref that he can continue. The whole crowd is shocked. Falling back to back like this, nobody thought that he was going to be able to stand up, but the one who's most shocked is Sendo. It's as if he's looking at a dead man walking. He just looks at Ippo with that gleam of determination in his eyes, knowing that this is the opponent that he's been waiting for. Sendo just clenches his fist, saying that Ippo is the first person to put his punch to shame. As the round starts back up, he rushes in with an attack of his own as Ippo is on the defense. At this rate, if he gets knocked down one more time, it's an automatic TKO. Ippo is carefully watching these punches, waiting for an opportunity as Sendo comes to the realization that Ippo's willpower outranks Sendo's strength. He knows that he should have worked harder in order to knock Ippo down and keep him down. Sendo lands a right as Ippo lowers his body, but follows up into continuous weaves. Sendo was just throwing punches at him left and right, but as Ippo dodged, he responds with a left liver blow, cracking two of Sendo's ribs. Sendo responds with even more of a ferocious barrage, empowered by his rage, but he realizes that the more he's punching, the more his injury worsens. Ippo knows that he felt some type of solid impact on that punch and can't believe that Sendo was still responding this strongly. He goes with another left liver blow, completely shattering those ribs, but Sendo doesn't have time to think about it. He's continuing punching on and on as the two of them can't help but admire each other as fighters. Ippo lands another punch to Sendo's ribs, completely stopping his momentum, but before Ippo could follow up, the round ends. Going back to his corner, Sendo knows that this fight won't stop until somebody's dead. Over in Ippo's corner, Gramps is trying to tell him not to talk. He needs to focus on recovery, but Ippo has a question. He asks Gramps what it means to be strong. And as he looks Gramps dead in the eye, he responds saying that Ippo's got to go into the ring, defeat that man, and find out. They kick the seconds out and the 6th round begins as it just continues as a barrage of punches between the two of them. In the crowd, Kumi is trying her best not to look away. She knows that now is when he needs the most support as she tries to get Mashiba to help her root for him, but he's not budging. She begins to cheer on her own as Mashiba goes into this monologue, pissed that Ippo has gotten even stronger. He knew that these two were special fighters, but he never thought that they could take it this far. Up with Aoki and Kimura, they're worried about Ippo's health. This is a great match, but as a fighter, they're risking everything. And looking down at Gramps, Unk knows that he's aware of it too. He could tell that Gramps wanted to throw in the towel in the 5th round, but since he chose not to, that was his final chance. At this point, there's no way he could stop it. Watching the fight, he's hypnotized. Over with Fuji and Imura, she says that she never expected this fight to go so far. And Fuji explains that a fight like this is called a mix-up. Each fighter is pushing each other to grow stronger and stronger with each punch that they're throwing. They're drawing the best out of each other. A match like this is few and far between. There's no way that they end this now. We get even more monologues from both trainers impressed with the opponent. Sendo has been brought to a new level because of Ippo and vice versa. At this point, they're not even concerned with who ends up winning. They just want to see how far their students can go. In the ring, as they continue to go back and forth, we get glimpses of Sendo's past. He was told to be a strong man just like his father, and while physically strong, he still doesn't feel like he's exceeded that standard. And over with Ippo, through all of his fights, we knew that his mission was to find out what it meant to be strong. He trained night and day, managing to gain confidence in himself in order to find out what strength truly was. As the 6th round finishes, they go back to their corners, but neither man sits down. King Doodle Shirt is wondering if they're both so tired that they're not going to be able to stand back up if they sit down. But on the contrary, Neko realizes that they have so much momentum from the fight, they can't sit and let that intensity die down. In their corners, both fighters are thinking about how they're going to end this match. As long as this is drawn out, it can't go on forever. Sendo knows that the only way he can win and knock Ippo down for good is with this smash. And Ippo knows that the only way he can take Sendo down is with this Dempsey roll. There's no other option. As the 7th round begins, neither trainer had ended up saying anything to their fighter. They know that they plan on ending it this round. But as Gramps is talking to Yagi, he's shocked to see Sendo putting up a cross arm block. Fuji and Imura are also shocked that the proud Sendo is using a defensive tactic like this, but up in the stands, Unk knows exactly what strategy Sendo's going for. He's storing up his energy in order to land one good punch to Ippo, ending the fight for good. Ippo is backing up as Sendo inches closer, and Ippo realizes that he can't go back anymore. He begins to weave and go into his Dempsey roll, making the first move, but Sendo dashes in, shoving his shoulder into him and throwing him off balance. Seeing the Dempsey roll begin to fail like this, Gramps, off to the side, has one regret. He was never able to find a solution to make Sendo back off. If Sendo continuously pushes forward, which they all expected him to do, Ippo's Dempsey roll could never be counted on. After all, that is the one way to stop it. Sendo sees the opportunity with Ippo off balance to throw a smash as he sends it out, but Ippo lands another left to Sendo's rib. He took the opportunity of knowing what Sendo was going for in order to get off collateral damage of his own. Ippo's able to land a right and push Sendo back, realizing that this is his chance, his best opportunity to go for the win, but Sendo looks at him, telling him not to get too cocky just because he saw one punch coming. He still has his other arm. Sendo hurls his right directly at Ippo's face, doing another low altitude smash, but Ippo dodges it, leaving Sendo completely exposed. Ippo responds with another left liver blow, completely shattering Sendo's ribs, as he follows up with a feint backed with killer intent to make Sendo guard high. Ippo follows his left liver blow into a gazelle punch, making Sendo's head fling back as he begins to go into his Dempsey roll. At this point, Sendo can't do anything but look on. Thinking about moments from the past, Ippo starts rallying punches into his weaves as he punches on and on and on, and Sendo has no means to retaliate. Finally, Ippo knocks Sendo to the ground as the crowd erupts in Ippo's favor. He goes back to his neutral corner as Gramps can't help but be impressed. At the last second, Ippo was able to come up with a completed version of the Dempsey roll, the way to make Sendo back off that even Gramps couldn't formulate. The left liver blow into the gazelle punch finished with the Dempsey roll, a combo powerful enough in different areas in order to lead into his ultimate finisher, bringing out the greatest of Ippo's destructive power. He even mixed in feints with killer intent in order to ensure its effectiveness. Ippo just sees the ref counting up as he reflects on his journey up to this point. His question as to what it meant to be strong, knowing that this win right here might give him the answer, but he just sees Sendo staring right at him. Sendo's managed to get back onto his feet, leaning onto the rope to keep himself up. Even his trainer at this point is begging for him to stay down, saying that he's done enough. He's given all that he could, but Sendo says he can't give up. He begins to lift his arm and nobody in the crowd can believe it. In Sendo's head, he's saying that he can't blink out. He can't go to sleep. He begins to doze off for a second, but locks back in, forcing himself to stare at Ippo. Sendo's just telling himself that he has to see it. He has to see the face of the man who defeated him. He drops his arms as the ref counts up to 10 and the bell rings. A new champion has been born. The 19-year-old out of Kamigawa Gym, Ippo Makunochi. He gets a standing ovation from the crowd as Gramps and Yagi rush into the ring, congratulating him after a fight that surely will go down in the history of Korakuen Hall. Yagi is swinging him around as from the crowd, Unk just looks at him, smiling. Kumi's at her seat, tearing up as Mashiba stands up, saying that he's done. He's seen what he had to see and he's gone. But as he's walking off, in his mind, he's saying that he's so worked up that he needs to work out or else he'll explode. We see everybody feeling their respective emotions after the fight. We see Miyata, Neko, King Doodle Shirt, Aoki Kimura, everybody. And in the ring, Ippo still can't believe it. He turns around, seeing Sendo, thanking him for the fight, as Sendo just tells Ippo to stand a little bit more confidently. After all, he's managed to defeat the great Takashi Sendo. Ippo just thanks him again as Sendo wraps his arm around him, saying that this won't be the last time they meet in the ring. Surely they'll have another fight. Sendo leaves the ring to a standing ovation as he walks out with his head held high. Suddenly, a man comes from behind Ippo, wrapping the championship belt around his waist as he throws his arms up into the air in celebration of his hard-earned victory. Over that night, as Sendo makes his way home, he walks in to seeing his grandmother sitting at the table. She was curious as to what his face would be like when he came home, and judging from it, she can tell that he lost. Sendo just walks to his room, telling his grandma one simple thing: he's still weak. She just looks up at a picture of Sendo's parents, saying that their son has come home one notch stronger than before. Over at Ippo's place, he's knocked out with the championship belt right beside him. His mom was peeking into his room, and seeing him with the belt, she congratulates him on his win. We fast forward to a few days later, and Ippo is on the way to his celebration party when he runs into Gramps. He asks Ippo if he remembered what he had asked him during the interval after round 5. Ippo asks Gramps what it meant to be strong. Ippo just says he was sure that he would find it during or after his fight with Sendo, and he feels as if he almost realized something, but at the end of the day, he didn't find it. So he'll continue to rely on Gramps' instructions moving forward. He runs up to see Unk inside the venue as Gramps just looks on, realizing that what Ippo was looking for may be more difficult than any belt that's out there. Hajime no Ippo. I said this in the intro, it's been a wild ride. I appreciate all of y'all who came from the very first video. I just randomly started covering this series as it was something that I wanted to watch, and I honestly never could have expected it to turn into something like this. This is the finale for season 1, but we're not done with the series. I'm gonna go through the OVA, I'm gonna go through the movie, and as long as copyrights don't go too crazy, I'm gonna go through seasons 2 and 3. So make sure y'all subscribe to see that when it comes. I appreciate y'all for watching this series, and hopefully I'll see y'all in the next one. Stay safe, y'all. We out.